I want you to get ready to embark on a transformative journey where there's no more suffering in silence, no more conforming to outdated societal norms. This is the podcast where we dare to crush those societal expectations and embrace the realities of pregnancy and parenthood with one honest conversation at a time. It's time for us to rise above the shadows and ignite a movement towards a happier, more fulfilled world for every parent and child. If that's you and you're ready to challenge the status quo and embark on this incredible journey with me, then I'd like to welcome you to the Birth Junkie Podcast. All right. Well, welcome back to the Birth Junkie Podcast. Today, I am joined with Erin, and Erin is a virtual lactation educator and creator of Nursing Mamas. She combines her 2 master's degrees in health and family communication, lactation knowledge, and personal nursing experience to focus on the parent-toddler nursing relationship. Through online courses and consults, she helps extended breastfeeding women who aren't ready to wean, but are feeling overwhelmed by on-demand nursing and are ready to set breastfeeding boundaries so they can keep the bond without the burnout. She lives in Costa Mesa, California, with her husband, Scott, daughter, Avery, and son, Luca, and is a veteran nursing mama of 4.5 years. That is amazing. I love all of that. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I would love for us to just jump into your beautiful story.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. And oh my gosh, that's a mouthful. I always try to narrow it down, but I'm like, there's so much to say, to
Yeah.
put into a small bio. Like I said, 4.5 years worth of experience to try to shove in there. Well, to start off, I had my first child in 2016. I knew I wanted to breastfeed. I took the courses, had a doula, and had an unmedicated birth. One, because I really just, my biggest fear was C-sections, but the more I learned, the more in, medications and other things, the harder breastfeeding is. So I was like ready for breastfeeding, I thought. And then it was really challenging. She couldn't latch well, and we just had a lot of struggles in the beginning. And overcoming that in the first couple months, once we got going, it was like hard to imagine stopping. Some of it, honestly, I thought was like a trauma response, because it was like every moment of my life was make milk, And so my first goal was 6 months, and we hit that. And then I was like, okay, well, it's just starting to get easier. And so let's go for a year. And we hit that. And I remember talking to some people and crying, thinking like I had to quit, because at this time, the recommendations were a year. And so in my mind, it was, I had to now stop. And someone just said, well, if you don't want to stop, don't stop. And so I just said, okay, well, that works. And at that point, I stopped pumping when I was away, thinking, all right, well, I'll do that. And then my supply will dry up and we'll be done. Not knowing that your body can regulate and you can just nurse when you're with your child. And that was the amazing moments of my nursing journey, were about the next year or so, where we just nursed when we were together, and I wasn't engorged, and I didn't have the pump with me 24/7. And it was beautiful and empowering. I loved it. When she turned 2, we decided we wanted to try for another. And I nursed partway through my pregnancy with my second until my milk dried up. And part of it was denial on my part, and not just being, I wasn't ready to be done, but also she was such a mama's girl that I knew if I brought a new baby in and said, you can't have milk, this other kid gets all the milk, it was not going to be okay. It just wasn't. So I told her that when the baby came, the baby would bring the milk back. And that she seemed fine with that. And when the baby came, the baby brought the milk back. And funnily enough, she didn't remember initially how to latch. And so she just would put her mouth on me in a fish, like a guppy, and just lay there. And so I kind of thought at first, okay, well, maybe this really was the end. And well, that's fine, we'll move on. But one night she figured it out and it was off to the races. And I was tandem nursing a 3-year-old, 3-year-old and a newborn, and it was a lot. And so we did that for a while. I started figuring out I needed some boundaries around her nursing because she wanted it all the time and it wasn't manageable. And so we started doing it at morning, nap, and bedtime. And always after my second got it, he got the milk first. And then that went smoothly for a couple months until he threw me a curveball and decided to cold turkey stop nursing at 4 months. And
Wow.
so very different experience. And just he's my picky eater still now. And he's just like, no, I'm done. I'm not doing it. And so I ended up still nursing her 3 times a day and pumping for him 4 times a day while supplementing. And that was kind of the crazy cycle of life. And then come March 2020, and I had only been back to work 8 weeks when everything shut down, and I was home with these 2 kids with 3 naps that didn't line up,
Mm.
and pumping 4 times a day, nursing 3 times a day, co-sleeping with the little one, and still trying to work from home. And that was just not manageable. So I did that for 8 weeks and then stayed home and would never imagine being a stay-at-home mom. It was not anything I planned for or wanted. It was way harder than anything else, which at the time I was a college instructor and I went from teaching college to preschool, and it was a lot. And in the next 6 months or so, my nursing journey started coming to an end. I weaned from the pump and finished nursing for my son or pumping for him, and that really reduced my supply. And at the end, my daughter was nearly 4.5, and we could have conversations about it. And she was only nursing in the morning at night at that point because she had dropped her nap, and it was only about 3 minutes each. And my right side dried up first, and then I'm left with my left side for these few minutes. And we had conversations about it that, do you want to just keep going until one day it's gone? Or do you want to choose a day? And she ultimately chose a day. And, I fully expected her to come back the next day and just be like, no, let's keep going. Because it was hard. We both had tears about it. But she was ready. And what I didn't know to come was the deep grief that comes with weaning. And again, this was during COVID, and I felt very, very alone and didn't know what to do and where to go. And ultimately, that grief went into my business. I created Nursing Mamas. I got certified as a lactation educator to help others because I didn't know what to do with all this knowledge and experience. And so that's ultimately what led me here to help other extended nursers who it can be very isolating and alone. And I don't want people to feel that way.
Wow. I mean, that is just amazing. There's so many things that I want to come back to
Yeah.
because I want to know, like, with your first child, what made you want to nurse so badly that first time around?
I think like a lot of us, I was told breast is best. And it is such a, now knowing in hindsight, a terrible thing to tell a mom, and that the pressure to put on a mom. But also, I mean, it just, yeah, the nutritional benefits and everything I was told, right? Like the health benefits to me and to her. And why wouldn't you do it? And it's free, right? Like all of these things we're told that are not really true,
Mhm.
wholly to get us to persuade us to do this thing. The thing that kept me going was I had a major oversupply, and I did not know how to not to I didn't know how to stop. And actually probably made it worse in the cycle because the more you pump or the more you nurse, the more milk you make. And so I was so engorged in the beginning. And so I would pump with a hospital grade pump, and it was just making my supply worse. And so it was this deep cycle that I just couldn't get out of initially.
Hmm.
And one that I think a lot of us moms find ourselves in because we're so worried about not making milk that we end up making too much milk because we see those Pinterest pictures with the deep freezer stash. And really, that's not normal.
Right.
But we have this fear of not being enough because we're not making enough. And so we overcompensate.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And I love that. I love that it brought you into this journey of breastfeeding and gaining all this knowledge. So what is one way that you help women on their breastfeeding journey?
Okay, so when I first started, like most, I started in prenatal education. But the people I kept gravitating toward were the moms who, or like I was doing interviews, like Instagram interviews with people. And the people I gravitated to were the other fellow extended nursers because it was a very different experience and story. And I didn't understand people who would be like, yeah, I'm ready to be done at like 6 months. It's not my judgment. It's like, if you're ready to be done, I'm going to help you. But I didn't understand that. Like,
Right.
but you're just like, I don't get it. It was such a powerful tool for me. And so that really started making me think of the extended nursers. And so now today, I help women who are nursing over a year navigate toddler nursing and weaning because it is a different beast, especially if you have a strong willed child who likes to dictate where to nurse, when to nurse, how they want to, which side, and pulling your shirt down, and all of those things that don't happen in the first year. And it's not talked about and it's not supported. It's just sort of like, woohoo, you made it to a year, keep going or stop if you want. But the how is missing. And so my goal is to fill that void and help people navigate that.
I love that. And I actually am kind of in your realm right now. My son is, I want to say he's 19 months right now, and he still nurses, not all day long or anything. It's mostly like bedtimes, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're right, it is different. He's the one that I've nursed the longest so far. And we'll be out in public and he'll like rip my shirt down and like he's aggressive about it. And I was
Yeah.
not expecting that. And he'll get so mad if I tell him, no, not right now, or,
Yeah.
um, and it's like I do not feel prepared for that. And like there's other things he does, like he'll like nipple twiddle on the other
Of
side,
course.
and
Mm-hmm.
he's rough, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, let's be nice. And I'm like, how do I navigate this? So in that instance, what do you suggest? And biting too, I mean, he doesn't do that anymore, but like if someone were struggling with that, how would you approach those situations?
Yeah. This is it. These are the things that happen overnight, it seems like, where did my cute little infant go? And what I say is you have to start to reframe nursing from that 1 year of on-demand nursing to realizing now you have a demanding toddler who is nursing. And you no longer have to do on-demand nursing. Obviously, like, it doesn't magically switch at 12 months. There's a gradual change here, even at 19 months, right? That's still a young toddler. But when you start seeing these behaviors of them demanding it, like they are in full control of this relationship and you're feeling kind of like it's not working for you anymore, that's the time to start setting nursing boundaries. And nursing boundaries do not mean weaning. That being said, they are often the first step in the weaning process, even if that weaning process is still 2 years away. That it means you're taking control. I liken it to a partner dance, that for a year or longer, your child has been in the lead of this relationship. And when you start to try to become the lead, it's going to be an awkward dance for a while. And because they're going to try to keep being, in charge, and you can start to expect some upsets. And that's the thing that people struggle with too, because most of the time when I talk to an extended nurser, they're gentle parenting, right?
Hmm.
And they misunderstand gentle parenting to mean permissive parenting, and meaning if their child cries, they're not comfortable with that. And of course, if there's an infant crying or upset, you nurse them. But if you are giving into your child's behavior as a toddler, it's actually going to reinforce that behavior. So if you say no, don't do that, but then they get upset, so you nurse, it's just teaching them that no doesn't mean. So the first thing is trying to be prepared mentally for your child to be a little upset. Um, and it's really important that they learn that they can still be comforted by you in other ways besides the boob, and that you will still be there when they're upset, even if the boob isn't. So that's the first thing, is it's just a mindset shift and being prepared. The second thing is I always suggest bringing play into boundary setting. When we think of boundary setting, it's this firm thing, right? Like we're putting my foot down because that's how we were raised.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so anytime you think that, or there has to be some sort of punishment, reverse out of it and think, what is the opposite of this? So if the opposite is, um, let's say they're twiddling, right? And you want to get mad, how can you take that energy and make it playful? And a lot of times the play can come outside of the nursing time. So it's harder in the moment to talk about it, right? Because they're just in the middle of their nursing session and they're going to do their thing. So talking about it outside of the nursing session, or saying like, I really, that hurts. That hurts me. And they lack empathy, like developmentally. So if they don't care, that's, don't take it personal. But you can say, how about you play with this toy, and let them pick a toy, and give them options and practice it. Say like, let's pretend to nurse. And I know you want to do this, like acknowledge their feelings, right? And say, but we're going to change this behavior now. And another thing that I see a lot is like wanting to like stop the nursing session, which is okay to do sometimes, right? I used to do that if she hit me. And I would say, I don't share my body with people who hit me. We can nurse later. And so if your child is doing something to your body that you don't like, it's a perfectly fine time to teach them that that is not okay. You don't have to deal with it.
Hmm.
But it also doesn't necessarily mean you have to wean either.
Right. No, I love that. And I think you explained it beautifully. Like, and I could picture exactly how you said it's like a dance and,
Yeah,
the taking the lead. Like that is a perfect analogy. I love that so much. Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
That makes it feel easier for me going forward. And so one other thing that like maybe other people might have issue with is other people. So other
Mm-hmm.
people saying, "You're still nursing? You should wean," or something to that effect, and almost like shaming you for nursing past a year because in our country this isn't considered quote unquote normal. So
Yeah.
like what do you suggest in that situation?
Yeah. It's, I don't know if it's gotten a little bit better. One, just because my world is extended nursers. So I think COVID actually helped a lot, because there are, I feel like, women who had the luxury of staying home for work. Um, they don't know the experience of having to leave their child to nurse. And so I do think that there are a lot more extended nursers because of that. Um, but um, it doesn't mean the rest of society is caught up. And so when it's a stranger on the street, when it depends on the person who it is. The people it's going to be hardest with are the people you're closest to. And for example, I just had a client call the other day, and we really resonated with each other because she has a 4-year-old. They're at the end stages of it. And she's getting a lot of pressure from her partner to wean, that it's just not okay in their eyes. Like, this kid is too old. And this is probably their last child, and the child is feeling the pressure too. And what happens in those moments when you're feeling pressure, they feel it, and they're going to cling to it more. So it actually makes it harder. Those are not the best times to wean because it's just counterintuitive. It's counterproductive in those moments. And what often happens that I see, and I did myself, a term I've kind of coined is closet nursing, is a lot of times you just stop talking about it. And when you stop talking about it, it becomes more isolating. And the struggle gets harder because when they are hitting you or whatever else, you don't feel like you have anyone to go to because no one, if they haven't done extended nursing, understand. And they just tell you to wean. And you're like, easier said than done, right? If I could do this without feeling like an abusive relationship, maybe I would, right? And so what I suggest is it's really up to each mom and what you're comfortable with. Some moms don't care, right? And that's on them. I'm going to nurse where and when I want. And that is amazing. For some of us, and for me included, I was always even when she was little, not very comfortable nursing in public because I'm large chested. And I always felt like I couldn't stay covered. It was just like the boob was out,
Right.
So for me, it was always more of a private thing, and it became really our time together, and it was really special. So if people say things, a phrase I have that can work is just saying you may be right. Maybe extended nursing wasn't right for you, but it is for us. And you can't really argue much with that. And then, well, people may want to argue, but you don't have to take the bait on it. And just trust your mom instinct and know that what you're doing is normal and healthy and it's not harming your child. And it's only harmful if you are burnt out and struggling, because if you are struggling and resentful nursing, then that's going to be more harmful to your relationship than weaning.
Right. That makes sense. And so, gosh, you've given so many amazing nuggets in there. But I do want to come back to the partner aspect. So
Yeah.
in your eyes, how do you feel like a partner could best support, the mom and the child in this extended nursing journey?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, well, one is just kind of keep the mouth shut. And they may think they're too old, whatever the age is, 1 year, 3 years, it's not up to them. It's not their body. And it really is between the two of you, like your child and you. And that relationship is going to look different with every child. And it's, again, also easier said than done to wean. And adding that pressure to do so, it doesn't help at all. And so I would actually really encourage partners to say, I'm proud of you. Like, this is amazing. Thank you. Thank you for doing so much for our child. And I think that can go a long way, especially on a hard day.
Yeah.
And sometimes just asking, what can I do? Because I do think that a lot of partners want to help. They feel helpless because they see their partner struggling. And so they suggest things, right? Like, we provide advice because they think that's helpful. And the option they know is to wean. But other options can be, can I make you a snack? Can I fold the laundry? Why don't you had a rough bedtime? Go watch some TV. I'll do the dishes, right? Like, picking up the slack in other ways so that we can get the downtime is so valuable.
I love that. That is beautiful. Those are great suggestions. And I know, so personally, I always go back and forth with weaning. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, because this is our last baby. I'm like, okay, I want to cherish this for as long as it takes, whenever he wants to be done. But then, I have moments where I'm like frustrated and I'm like, I just want my body back. I'm so touched out. I go back and forth on it.
Yeah.
But, how do you suggest to your clients how to manage those feelings? Because I feel like more people feel that kind of way than we actually put out there. It's either
Hmm.
we see like someone's gung ho completely about it or they're like totally against it. I hardly ever see the in between that way.
Yeah, what you're describing is something I call the emotional cycle of the extended breastfeeding mom.
Mhm.
And it starts in love, and you love it, and you're so empowered by it. But then it starts to slowly tip over into burnout. And maybe they're a little too demanding. Maybe their daycare's closed, they're sick. You are tired because you're cluster feeding at night again. And most of us are co-sleeping at this point. And like you're just getting burnt out. And so that's getting into the burnout resentment phase. And if you stay in there too long because you don't know how to get back out of it, you get into burnout and like the ready to wean moment where you say, I'm done, right? And that's usually when people come to me and because they try to cold turkey wean or say no when they're not usually used to saying no, and they get the upset and they don't know what to do. And so then they start leaning back and thinking, getting nostalgic and saying, oh, this is my last baby, right? Or am I really ready to be done? Think of all the amazing times. Like it's such a good tool to have when they're sick and you start thinking of the good stuff and you start maybe getting a little guilty because, but they love it so much. I'm taking this thing away. And so then you kind of convince yourself to get back into the love phase of the cycle and do it all over again. And it can go on multiple times in one day, honestly,
Yeah.
which is the roller coaster. So instead of the cycle happens, but it's more about acknowledging where you are and trying to get out of it sooner. And going back to the beginning of our conversation, that's where boundaries come in. Like if you're starting to feel that burnout, instead of telling yourself maybe it means it's time to wean, it usually means I need to set some sort of boundary that, or there is a boundary that's being crossed that I need to assess. And that can help you if your goal is child led weaning, it can help you get there. Because it's on demand nursing a toddler for years is unmanageable. It's
Mhm.
unsustainable and it's not fair to us to give ourselves in that way for so long.
Right.
Um, and another thing that I distinguish between is parent-led weaning and parent-led breastfeeding. And there's a distinction there. Like you can guide how this journey is going to look without making your child get to the finish line before they're ready.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, in your journey, have you implemented these tips and that's kind of where you came about how you support other moms?
A little bit. Yeah, definitely that first moment of I was in that cycle, the emotional cycle, and I remember so vividly being in the doorway of my bedroom looking down at my little dictator, my 3-year-old dictator, and just saying, that's it. You and I was like making it up as I went, but I was which I don't recommend, but I said like you get it 3 times a day, morning, nap time and bedtime. And at least for my child, my second's a different story, but she's my rule follower. And so having that guideline really helped her. And she just said, okay, and was good. And so what we need to remember about toddlers is we can't just tell them what they can't do. We have to tell them what they can do. We
Mhm.
focus on saying no, not right now. And we need to focus on when can they? Because if we try to push them off and say later, 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 they don't understand the concept of time and they're going to nag the heck out of you. Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it later yet? Like they don't know when later is. They think it's like a distinct time.
Mhm.
And so that does come from my personal experience. But a lot of this is also like what I've had to learn as a parent of toddlers generally, and just taking that information and applying it to the breastfeeding context
That's beautiful.
is yeah. And so it's a lot of learning from amazing other professionals. I have very strong-willed children. And so, yeah, parenting coaches that have helped me along the way, and then building off of that, and how can we apply this to this unique relationship?
That's great. And it sounds like to me like you take a unique approach to everybody you work with.
I have to. And that is, that all of lactation is really like that, but it's going to be very different with you with a 19-month-old versus talking with someone with a 3 or 4-year-old, because the developmental understanding of those children is going to be different. Their diets are different. Everything about it is going to change.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, like, even if, say, I have my 19-month-old and this other lady, in Alaska has a 19-month-old, like, our journeys and everything are going to be so different. And there's not one size fits all. So what works for me might be horrible for her. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think that's great. And so when you were in your journey, is there anything that you wish you could have done
Mm.
differently? Like, and I don't ask this like because obviously we don't have a time machine. So I ask this so in case somebody's going through a similar journey and this might be helpful for them to try or look into. So if there were anything that you could do a redo on, what would that be? Or would there be anything?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love this question. And it's not a coming out of a regret place. It's more, like you said, in hindsight, and what I've learned since, what I would have done different. And I really would have done more to celebrate the end, because like I said, it was an intense grieving process. And that's something I see that in my clients. I know when someone's really at the end because they cry. And when someone comes to me like angry, they're not there yet. And someone at the end it's a deep, deep grief of this part of your parenting, either parenting journey, or at least with this child, is coming to an end. And I didn't know how to celebrate it. I didn't know how to commemorate it. And I've since learned how to do that and recommend things. So and again, I was in COVID, so there was a lot of things that were weird then, but I would have at least had my husband come in and take a picture of our last nursing session. Or I've seen beautiful photo shoots, if you want more professional pictures to be taken, maybe not the last session, but getting near there. Just having a party with a cake. It could be a
Love
boob
it.
cake, like
I love
whatever.
it.
That's amazing. I wish I had known about breast milk jewelry. I would have done that and saved some milk, and I don't anymore. I don't have anything. What I did do actually just a couple months ago, here it's going to be upside down, is I got a tattoo that to
Oh,
commemorate it. And this is something that I've literally thought of for 2 years. And it was to the point where my arm felt like it was missing something. And it's obviously, those of you can't see it, it's a dandelion with the seeds flying away, but I have two birds representing my kids. But I wanted something for my nursing experience, and the dandelion kind of looks like a boob, it looks like it has the nipple. And so it just is for me. And so however you want to commemorate that, think of it ahead of time, even months out, years out, like how do you want the end to look? And I think that would have made it easier to transition out of it.
Wow, I love that. I'm planning the end of my journey now. I never
Yeah.
even thought about that, but you're right. I feel like, connecting some kind of positive experience to that end of the journey, even though it might feel so emotional, so hard, especially if it's your last baby and like you're not going to do this again. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's
Yeah, of
beautiful.
course.
So if somebody were to want to work with you or just, come into contact with you, what would be the best way for somebody to do that?
So I'm on Instagram at Erin.nursingmamas. So that's one way. You please DM me, let me know where you found me. And I do consults and I have online courses depending on where you are in your journey. And a resource I have to help you figure out where you are in your journey is a quiz, it's like 2 minutes. And you can go to nursingmamas.com/quiz to try that out. And that will help you figure out where you're at. And so whether you are coming up on a year and you are extended nursing curious, or you're in the trenches, or you're loving it, or you're at the end, it will tell you where you are, and then also, more importantly, what's to come, and some tips to kind of navigate where you're going. So I encourage everyone to try that, just to get a sense of, how to make this more manageable, because it can be hard to do alone.
Definitely. And obviously, I'm going to drop all of those links down below the episode. But this conversation has honestly been so nourishing for me. I so appreciate you making the time to come and chat with me today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. I will chat with you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, I feel so honored that you took the time out of your busy day to listen to that episode. I really hope that you liked it, or something resonated with you, or you learned something new today. Make sure to hit subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like to connect with me, go ahead and go to the show notes and click the link. I'd love for you to rate and review this show. That helps more people see this show when they're searching. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a beautiful day. I will see you next week.